We have another exciting panel. And I don't I still remember that I said I'll talk to you why are we here, but I don't want to take time, especially when I tell other people to manage time. So without much ado, so let's move forward, and I'd like to first of all invite the moderator for the next session. Let me get my papers in order, Faiza. I'll just invite you in a little while. And the topic is employee engagement. And this would be moderated and facilitated by Faiza Imtiaz. Please put your hands together. And she's a partner with Engage Consulting. Mr. Nasir Akhtar, who's the chairman of Infotech Group. And the one name that I shouldn't forget this time is Shiraz Kareem, because Shiraz is the one who reminded me that I forgot a name. And Shiraz here is the regional HR director for Pakistan and Philippines for SAP Global Market Intelligence. Please put your hand together for Shiraz. I don't know if Mr. Khurram Rao, Director, HR Barrier Town is here. Okay. And Sayyid Zulfikar Ali, Head Human Resources, Geo Television is here, I know. Kidhar hai? Haan, taaliyan baja dein ke liye, because we met at lunch. That's wonderful. I think Adil Anwar hasn't arrived yet. So over to you.
We have one other panel member, and that's Max. Max, please come back on stage. You need no introduction. He's been trying to keep us engaged since morning. So a big round of applause for Max.
And we have roughly 50 minutes.
Yeah, and we have about 50 minutes. So a warm welcome to all of the panel members, and Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone else in the audience. So we've heard a great deal since morning about how times are changing, and they've changed. So the word changed from VUCA to crazy to we don't know what we're doing now. And then we also heard about how we have multi-generational workforce in our offices, and we've heard about how employment trends are changing. So from your typical sort of job preferences, you now have technology entrepreneurship, you've got social entrepreneurship, you've got shared economy. The way people work has changed and evolved. If I give you my own personal example, just 6-7 years ago, I was in a job where it was a virtual job. I was based in Pakistan. My line manager, an Australian woman, was based in Hong Kong. And my team member, a Vietnamese girl, was based in Ho Chi Minh. And the three of us were basically responsible for leadership development of about 15 countries in Asia Pacific. So, the work models have also evolved and they're changing. With all of these changes, what we have seen, though, is that talent remains at the heart of who we are, how we perform, and how we gain competitive advantage. And because talent remains at the heart of all of what we are doing and who we are and why we exist, keeping that talent engaged and involved is critical. It is instrumental for business success. A lot of big names out there like Gallup and Mercer and Aon Hewitt and Deloitte, all of them have conducted research that points to the fact that engaged employees, organizations with engaged employees tend to perform better. They show better shareholder value, and the absenteeism is much lower. Retention rates are much higher productivity, much higher business performance. However, there is a Gallup study that also says that in organizations, typically 13% of the employees are highly engaged, and about 87% of the employees are either engaged or they're indifferent. So still a lot of work to do within that domain. Now, with all of that in the background, I'd like to start by asking all of the panel members, and we'll go from left to right, what is your personal and organizational perspective on employee engagement? What are some of the initiatives that your organization has taken in this context? And then we'll proceed from there.
Thank you. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as engagement, and as the conference is in the VUCA times, so I was searching VUCA on net a few days back, and what I found is that it's first coined by military. And then I realized why it's so familiar to us at Geo, because military has a direct relationship with us. So keeping people engaged at this level, because the kind of ambiguity and chaos we experience in journal and media and in specific with Geo is unprecedented. I don't know a company which has booked 7 billion rupees loss and is still surviving for within last 1.5 years. Engagement is about living, what our perspective, from Geo perspective, engagement is about employee living your company values. It's not employee happiness, it's not any other index, but it's all the employees collectively living the value which company has set for itself. And this living the values doesn't come instantaneously, or it doesn't come in the crisis only. You have to invest in a long-term perspective. 2002 we started, and first thing we did was to set our company values. And we have invested a lot till in the last 15 years to convince employees and to convince them to live these values, because these are these values on which company will survive and these employees will survive. Many of the employees we hired left us because they were not able to live the values, and they decided to move on, and we don't bother about it. We need people who are living our own values, like creativity, like fastest first, like diversity, like dard, what we call it dard is consciousness. So these values support our business directly, and our employees are living those values. And that's why we survive out of, I think, we were closed 5 times for number of months and number of years, and 6 months with zero revenue and stuff like that. We're still surviving, and people are still there. I'm there for last 15 years, and I think I have 400 more colleagues who are there for last 15 years, and there are people who went out of the company, came back to Geo, because as per them there is no place else to work as good as Geo and media. So that actually it's a long-term process. It's a mutual process from both sides, from employees and from the company also. You have to challenge all the decisions of the management and all the actions of your employees on the basis of your values, not the skill set. This is our principle, that we will not challenge the skill set. Because what I have been hearing since morning, that we will be needing a new skill set. I don't think the focus on the skill set would matter much, because the half-life of the knowledge on which you base the skill set is reducing drastically, and you never know what kind of disruption, what kind of technology is going to erode the skill set you right now have. Like for television, if we don't acquire the digital news gathering and news broadcast skill set within next 12 months or 15 months, we will be it will be hard for us to maintain our first position. And the TV by itself is changing its face. Now TV screen is 5.5 inch to this size. So the technology is impacting very fast on the skill set. So the only survival in VUCA times, in those fast changing times for us, is to stick to the values, stick to the creativity, stick to the consciousness, stick to the fastest first. You have to be fastest first in every function. You have to be fastest first in the HR, and you have to be fastest first in breaking news and news gathering. So you have to live the value in all processes of the company, and that's, for us, that's the only survival in VUCA world.
Okay, so what you're saying is that at Geo, living the values is the most critical thing when it comes to employee engagement. And I think we'll come back later and try and find out how do you make that happen, because that's the critical piece. So we will come back to that. Shiraz, your thoughts on employee engagement, and again, within your organization, what have you done? What are some of the challenges you guys have faced?
Yeah, so engagement is sort of pretty basic when it comes to any organization. It's very interesting when I was asked to actually be a panel member and talk about employee engagement. I was recently in Saudi Arabia. I was doing Umrah, so this is not by design. This is
congratulations on that.
Thank you. And so we were sitting in a room. It was just myself and my wife, and I was just telling her that over here, I sort of feel a very strong connect, and the prayers are more meaningful over here, you know. And her response was interesting because she said that you feel the connect because here you have the conviction that what you're saying is being heard. Maybe back home you don't have that conviction. And just sort of translating this, it's that simple. When you know that your voice is being heard and you feel that there is going to be an action taken against that, that is when the engagement is sort of, in my opinion, the highest. And if as organizations, as leaders, we're able to give that opportunity to our employees, I think that is when engagement really kicks in. I've been working for over 20 years, mostly HR, and I've seen a sea shift on how engagement was done. I mean, we used to have, earlier it was sort of a tick box exercise, as Vikas Saab in the morning was saying and alluding to. We used to do a survey once a year, sort of sit in a boardroom, discuss what the challenges were, think that we already have all the answers, and just go out and roll out initiatives thinking that it'll actually have an impact and employees will be more engaged. It has evolved over the years, and now the way it's done in our organization at least is that we still do surveys, but we do surveys at various points in time. So engagement starts actually before a person is hired. And we have these various surveys of people who've just joined us, people who've been with us for 3 months, for a year, once during a year, and when they're leaving. All those are actually interlinked. The questions that we asked when a person joins us, when the person leaves us during the whole employment period are sort of similar. So we get a trend of what the employees are thinking at various points in time. Engagement, as a lot of the other esteemed colleagues have alluded to, is not an HR subject any longer. It's every individual for themselves. I think the employees are vested in it as well. We might be the enablers in HR. I think the managers, the business leaders are the owners, but the employees have to help us help them. Engagement is an individual thing. I might get engaged or feel connected for something different versus the rest of my colleagues. So what we feel is that each manager who has a few direct reports should be able to know what really drives each individual and make sure that they're taking the actions to engage them, and we empower them to do so as well. There are a lot of things that the company is doing as well. Maybe we can come to that later.
Okay, great. So, and so what you've said, I think what stood out in what you said is that it is as much the employee's responsibility as it is the managers or HRs. And then you've also said that the conviction that what you're saying will actually be heard and there would be some action taken on it is what drives employee engagement to a large extent. Max, you've had, such diverse experience in terms of dealing with so many different organizations and so many people at so many different levels. Give us your thoughts on employee engagement and what you think works and doesn't work.
If you allow me to disrupt to begin with.
Absolutely.
This was a cold call for me.
Yes.
I wasn't prepared for this, and thank you for inviting me. I think it's fair people who have prepared and have thought about it get to go first. So I would pass this on to good friend Nasir Akhtar, that he gets to express clearly his point of view, and then I could also do that and help you manage time as well.
That's a fair expectation. So Nasir, on to you. It's come as a cold call to you now because you were going to stop at Max initially. But so your perspective on employee engagement and what are you doing at Infotech to keep people motivated and driven?
Thank you, Faiza. Is it working?
Ajay.
Yeah, okay. And Max, you don't need actually preparation because your interactions with people defines that you know the subject. And anyhow, employee engagement is no less than a 360-degree affair. Gone are the days when there was 4 or 5 major pillars of engagements through HR, through enablement, through development, through line managers and all that. Over the very few years, these 4 pillars are now all of a sudden emerged as 12 or 16 or 20 pillars. And And it hasn't come from nowhere. Those have been existing, but those were not visible. For example, I give you the channels of engagements are changing. Again, there comes the technology and other things which is actually making it simple, but at the same time making it really complex to understand that the 360-degree engagement with employees and how to draw a map of that engagement, that is the key. Now, fundamentally, 4 or 5 pillars of engagement through HR and all that is fine. That will remain. The other channels are invisible channels, like employee profiling, what they are doing, and how they are behaving, what is their attitude. I mean, you can't collect all that data manually, no matter how smart HR people and how smart managers you hire. You need to actually know inside out of an employee in order to find out what are the shortfalls, what are the risks, what are the strengths. For that, there are technologies available. I'm not pitching technology, by the way, over here. Although my company, and why I know of this is because I'm very current on the things for 2 reasons. One, it's very close to my heart because when I started this company, I was the HR manager, I was the CFO, I was everyone. Because I used to call people to come for interview, I used to interview and all. Obviously, I mean, every entrepreneur has to go through that process, so I've been through that. But now with 400 people and majorly providing technology solutions for HCM, for employees particularly. So these are the 2 reasons that I'm current on these things. So the disruptive channels through which you need to actually collect data are still invisible, and those are coming up. I'll give you a very current and today's example, what happened. Last evening, I received a call at 11. I'm in a habit of sleeping around 10, 11. So I was about to sleep, I received a call from my HR that one of our engineer who traveled to Cairo yesterday for a customer engagement has been detained by immigration authorities over there. And they are probably not letting him go. They want to extensively interview him for something. So yeah, there was nothing I could do except I had a phone number for hot desk at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Obviously, nobody would pick up as usual. Embassy this morning, I started calling. Nobody would pick up. So then I called my HR people and asked them to sit with me and try to guess what has happened probably. Opened his Facebook profile, and here we go. I mean, some of the posts were clearly indicating that what could have possibly have happened. It was something to do, it's a 27-year young boy, obviously full with passion and all that, and obviously having ethnic alignment with whatever group and all that. So these are the channels which are widely being used and scientifically being used, the data streams from LinkedIn, from Facebook, and from other social media channels, coming with analytics, cognitives, which give you in a split of a second profiling of a person. And that is being heavily used by agencies, by visa sections of, let's say, most sophisticated countries like US and all that. They would know what you have written, what you have been doing on. So that defines a behavior. And that gives you all the information, where have you been working, which company you are working for. And it reflects the attitude of a person. So this is 1 or 2 examples. There are other things that you can draw from these kind channels in order to add it to your own systems that you have in place to engage employees and to find out their shortcomings, their disabilities, or their strengths, or their risks that they can pose to your organizations. So my point over here is that we need to look beyond the traditional channels of engagements in order to keep them engaged, in order to have an effective monitoring and development for your talent that you have.
All right. So for you, it's a 360-degree affair, and we need to look way beyond our traditional channels to understand who they are and what they prefer, and then maybe decide on what works for them.
Exactly.
So Zulfikar, coming back to you, you were talking about values being at the heart of employee engagement at Jio. So help us understand, how do you enable employees to live those values? What do you specifically do?
What we do is, we are in the business of influencing people's life. Whatever we do on a screen influence people's life in many forms and directions, and positive and negative, everything. So it's easy for us to apply same principle inside the organization. And we try to cover all aspects of an employee's life and try to touch that so they associate with the company. For example, if we created transparency in every process of HR and the line manager, management, like performance feedbacks and hiring and separating the employee, whatever is the process, it has to be transparent. It should have two opinions, one from the employee side and another from the management side or the line management side, because this is the essence of our news coverage, that we must have two opinions, one of the complaining party and one of the opinion party. So the value we are disseminating outside, we applied the same value inside also. That's the same thing is happening, and then we touch the personal development of people. I think most of the news heads in the industry are the people who were trained by Jio as their first batch of trainee. Sama is headed by a trainee from Jio, Dawn is headed by a trainee from Jio, and Dunya is being headed by a trainee from Jio, and a lot of other peoples also. Channels also. So what we have participated in their personal developments also. Then we touch their families also. We do a lot of things for their family engagement. For example, we do a localized version of Take Your Daughter to the Work Day. We call it Chalo Beti Daftar Chalo. So we do that also. We do things for fathers. We send cards and giveaways from their children to the fathers. All across the organization, and it applies to everyone, right from a security guard to the CEO. So this way we touch their families also. And then the other part is to give them pride, because whatever we do, we take pride on that. So we develop their ownership in bigger campaigns, like we ran a campaign for judiciary. And successfully the judiciary was restored. So the acknowledgement was distributed across the board among all the employees. So everybody got the same acknowledgement certificate as the news people and the technical ones in HR and administration, everybody. So the ownership of whatever we do in entertainment or in news, it is across the board. So that across the board ownership, that's family relationship with each and every employee, and contributing to their personal development. All these processes are built around Jio values. If it's creativity, it's diversity, if it's fastest first, it's celebration, whatever is the value. We have 8 core values. All these processes are developed around those values, and that's why people associate to even our appreciation letter. It must have a value. If a value does not justify the appreciation letter will not go out. Even an individual appreciation letter must have a value at the bottom of the appreciation letter. So that's how we connected everyone to the value set we have.
You mentioned at the start that you've been with Jio now for 15 years, right? So what has kept you there for so long?
Well, values, that's it.
It's as simple as that, the set of values.
Because I have the liberty to challenge CEO, which I don't think anybody can do that. I can refuse him to do something, simply. He has no he will not overrule me. I will tell him, this is wrong and this is against our values. Business-wise, profit and loss, that's separate. But if it's a value question, HR has the authority to overrule.
All right, okay. Shiraz, earlier on when Umar Saif and Badr were having a dialogue, and I remember Badr left us with a thought, a word of caution rather, which was for the corporates. And he said that given that we now have so many different channels of employment and kinds of employment, people going into shared economy, freelancing, tech entrepreneurship, so on and so forth, the corporates have to be extra careful and extra vigilant and diligent in designing engagement solutions for their employees, because attracting the right kind of talent is now more challenging, and then keeping them there, keeping them as an engaged captive audience. So what creative steps have you guys taken at S&P Global, which are in line with some of these recent trends and how the workforce is changing?
Yes, so, at S&P, it is an extremely diverse workforce. And I'm not just talking about Pakistan, because I look after Pakistan and Philippines. So that's quite a different challenge in it altogether. And a lot of my colleagues, counterparts, they're sort of looking after multiple geographies, different cultures, different sort of challenges in different countries, different industries. So keeping all of that in mind and sort of being able to come up with a consistent value proposition which would work everywhere is a huge challenge. That is probably one of the reasons why we are very open to any sort of innovation that comes through, any sort of suggestions that come through from employees. And there's no sort of a hard and fast rule that you have to come to the office at this time and sort of stay in the office for this long. And it's mostly driven by the employees, what works for them. Yes, there are targets, there are things that need to be achieved. As long as those are being met, that's the manager's responsibility. How he or she handles their own team, they're totally independent to do so. We are in a highly regulated sort of sector as well, so there are certain areas where we cannot go into, but keeping those in mind, as long as we are not going against any law of the land or obviously the policy of the company, we generally are very open, very flexible. We're open to suggestions, as I said. If an employee comes to us and says that the current timing does not work for them, or if they want to work from home, or they're traveling abroad, but they're working on a project, they would want to work from there as well. We're extremely open to all of that. Giving extended leave to someone if that is required. At the end of the day, we need to get the work done. We need to make sure that, as initially we were saying, that it is what we give to the shareholders at the end of the day, that is extremely important. As long as we are hitting those targets, we are very, very flexible in how we handle things. It's the company is very culture sensitive as well. What I'm able to do in Pakistan, or what I am doing in Pakistan, might be very different from what I'm doing in Philippines, because that sort of works well for their culture, and that is what drives the employees and engagement over there. That's how we are able to retain that talent. So being extremely flexible, being open to innovation, as long as we are sort of within the defined limits, I think that's working really, really well for us.
All right, great. Max, do I still skip you, or do you get a chance to?
I can.
Okay, wonderful. So we'd like to hear from you.
Okay, please give me some voice. Yes, thank you. I'm a little more radical. Please forgive me and take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. I think engagement is an activity or a subset of something much bigger. There's a purpose to engagement. And I think it's good to revisit why we are in business. And we are in business, and that's where Deming comes in again. We are in business because we want to improve quality of life. We do not want to just accumulate wealth. So please think about it for a little while, that we are in business because we want to improve quality of life. Quality, I mean, of course, the people who got into business to begin with felt that, all right, there is something that they have, core skills or resources that it can be deployed to generate surplus, and has surplus can be deployed to improve quality of life. And quality of life are basically three components: the employees, the shareholders, and the customers. So if that is the objective, then all these three are in a way partners. And a relationship between these three should be, I will urge that we consider this is a relationship which is based on ethics and honesty and commitment, and does not become an exploitative relationship. And of course, if that will happen, then we will have to be, all of these people must be engaged. Not only engaged, and please don't laugh too much about it, we need to be married. We need to practice polygamy here. And marriage then would mean that we are gelling together, and our losses and our benefits are connected. And there is no exploitation in this, which means we are not into profit maximizing. Yes, we must create surplus so that we can expand our businesses, which means give employment to even more people, and hence benefit even more customers, and hence continue to improve quality of life. I think sometimes engagement could be misunderstood as a methodology to squeeze out an employee. So we have to be very careful in our attitude towards it. It is not to get an employee to give his sweat and blood so somebody else could make a profit. It is about partnership, marriage, and in this marriage have children and grandchildren and get an opportunity to long-term vision to work together. So engagement has to be in harmony and looking at what are the visions and aspirations and joys and sufferings of people who are our productivity partners. I don't even want to call them employees, because we can't produce without them. So capital, people, resources, tools are all our productivity partners. And most important productivity partner, which significantly will give you a competitive edge, is actually our people.
All right. Yeah.
We as human beings. So I think we need to revisit. I will urge us to revisit the role of employee, and it is not some labor that we are buying against certain amount of money. It is that person's aspirations and dreams and capabilities and enhancement and his or her desire to excel in whoever he or she is. Providing that canvas is what it is. And I think management also, there is the ownership as the shareholders, and for my friend Nasir Akhtar is the shareholder, and the management is enrolled into the same family. But management should consider for a little while that they are not the agents of the capitalist. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that management is not the agent of the shareholder. Management is the custodian of its people, because it's the people who produce the surplus. That's what I want to say on this.
Thank you, Max. Well said. So you're saying employees are productivity partners, and we shouldn't be slaving them, rather partnering with them to form a relationship which benefits the employees as well as the shareholder. And Max has spoken about getting married and having kids, but guys, that was only used as a metaphor, so don't get any funny ideas there, right? So Nasir, coming back to you and looking at your organization, a lot of times we do have engagement initiatives. We also have ways of measuring, engagement, surveys, KPIs, so on and so forth. What I'm interested in knowing is that what happens at Infotech if the engagement scores of a survey are not high? Or, if you find out that, as an organization, you're not doing too well on engagement scores, are people held accountable? And if so, then how?
Yeah, we have first of all, we have a belief that having ways and means to manage people or to provide tools and other things to manage employees, those are meaningless unless those are orchestrated in a way which balances what we are singing, like shareholders' values and other things. It's meaningless if it is not properly orchestrated and evenly distributed what is produced out of those people. And I must appreciate, this terminology is extremely touching, productivity partners. I have heard it but I missed it a few times, but I think it touches. So first of all, the orchestration, and how does the orchestration come into play without discipline in every area? I think the core of our problems are stemming out of the ill-disciplined attitude as a nation, I would say, as a whole. I mean, we see it on the roads, we see it in our neighborhoods. People are violating, I mean, small little social things which shouldn't have been. Forget about crossing the red signals or going a wrong way and towing the rights of pedestrian and other things. So, I mean, unless we focus on discipline more than anything, because if the discipline is not there, you cannot orchestrate. I mean, if one of the component is failing to perform, it cannot actually produce what we want to have. So we look at discipline as the key to every problem that can come across.
Okay.
Yeah.
Max, how much time do we have? Because
We have another 10 minutes.
all right.
12 minutes,
So I'm going to ask the two of you the same question, because for me, measuring what we do and measuring the impact of what we do is really important, because what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So in your organization, Zulfikar, what happens when, let's say the engagement levels are low? You actually find out through a survey that, people aren't as engaged as they should be. Do heads roll? Are people held accountable? Are leaders held accountable? Are promotions stopped? What happens? I mean, how do you tell people that this is a very serious business for us at Geo?
Actually, in our case, we are dealing with people who are not that structured as in IT industry or any manufacturing concern or any research company or any other, because they are creative people. They are, I would say, they are not even the average managers. And the industry is only 15 years old. And thanks to many previous government, we don't even have educational structure for media studies or any qualification or diploma in media management especially. We have production degrees, but media management is something which is very. So rather jumping on the line managers directly and frustrating them more, what we do is we challenge management first, and then we got approvals or corrective measures, whatever. And then with the intervention of management and HR, we try to correct the things. In our company, we don't jump on managers, especially on line managers, to hold them accountable, because they are learning the ropes with their own trade right now.
All right.
And it's changing very fast, because as we discussed since morning, that the millennials coming in, we are working with 39% millennials right now. And the digital is changing so fast that there is a study which says that by 2020 there will be 50%. But what we expect is by next year we would be having 50% millennials. So that's another change which is attracting a lot of attention from our line managers, to convert their own selves from an analog TV to digital. So it's a lot of stuff on them, and they have a lot in their plates. So that's why we intervene as a management. We intervene and we try to correct the situation.
All right. Shiraz, what do you guys do at S&P Global?
Yeah, so so our sector, I guess, much more structured, and we look at these numbers very, very seriously. Cannot look at them in isolation. So it's not that heads roll right away if the numbers are not right. We definitely look at trends, how things are going. So the engagement scores for managers, we sort of get them individually for each line manager. But those are not just looked in isolation to assess the performance of the manager being good, bad, or otherwise. This is one data point that we do collect. However, if the numbers are low, or the trend is that they're sort of they're going south, is when we definitely take a deeper dive. We would take a deeper dive anyways. So at this point in time, actually these days, we've just recently received our results from the last survey, and what we do is action planning. So firstly, what we have, all managers, and that includes the president of our company, each one of us has a goal defined with the engagement percentage that we sort of ourselves put down, that this is the engagement that we should strive to achieve within our teams. So there is skin in it as well. If the numbers are not right, they hit my paycheck as well at the end of the day. So our bonuses are impacted. So yes, we look at those, we analyze those, we look at it at the company level. We might have 2 or 3 big ticket items that we would want to look at across the board, across the company. We're talking about 41 countries over here, not just Pakistan. We look at it from a country perspective as well, so we would have a Pakistan number, and we might take a few initiatives to address the situation in Pakistan. Then each manager would have it for their particular team. So we're talking about 7 to 10 people. So we do focus groups, we do open hours, we engage with the employee. So when a question is asked, the options are yes or no, or maybe. But sort of getting to the root cause is important as well. So that's why we then engage the employees. The survey itself is anonymous. But we would know which group it is coming from. So we get the group together, we ask them more questions, we probe further so that we actually get to the gist of it and are able to address the problem that might lie there. Each manager actually is required to have an action plan based on the results of the survey that they get every year. And they're expected to make sure that they work on that action plan. And that's a living document. It is not something that is made at the start of the year or mid of the year and sort of remains there. It is looked at a quarterly basis. We actually mention what initiatives are being taken. Where there is an impact that we see, we might actually do smaller surveys in between as well. And if things are working, great. If they're not, then they can sort of come up with something else that they feel might work better. So yes, there is a lot of focus on it, and the service scores are part of our all our managers' objectives as well.
All right, great. Nasir Saab, I guess for you, my last question is that what is your advice to aspiring professionals in the audience when it comes to keeping their employees engaged? So there are business managers here, there are HR managers here, there are employees here. So, what advice do you have for them? How can they sort of keep their, there's one thing they should focus on in terms of keeping their employees engaged, what should that be?
I think the most important characteristics that actually eventually produce something meaningful for everyone is I mean, in a very simple and crude word, is hard work. But there is a lot behind that. I mean, it's not just hard work physically to be 8 to 10 hours in office or at the job or doing labor, whether it's intellectual or physical and all that. People need to understand that they are there to produce something. And I mean, we may call it a labor arbitrage, which has been actually fading away over the past 10, 15 years. I can prove it to you with my research that why our productivity is, as collectively, I'm not referring to one organization versus another organization, but overall. I mean, let's pick up any area. Our textile industry used to be champions in this region, if not in the world, producing garments and value added and other things 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now we are nowhere. The Bangladesh, the ready-made garments exports are more than the total exports of Pakistan. And they just did it in about 15, 20 years. And the whole industry shifted from Pakistan to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Look at the agricultural outputs over the past 25, 30 years. Pesticide, fertilizer, scientific water management methods, and all that. Actually, the rest of the world has increased their agriculture output and our is going down. I cannot attribute anything other than that we have forgotten that we need to continue with the labor arbitrage. Innovation, entrepreneurship, that is fine. That comes once you are doing something. I mean, unfortunately, it has become a buzzword and an activity. For most of the people, I see that with due apology that they are busy in teaching the entire nation just to be entrepreneur on PowerPoint and make these ideas, sell those ideas and all that. That is not happening. We come from a background where the labor is what produces for our bread and butter, and that is going to give us expansion possibilities in whatever we do. So we need to increase our productivity rather than anything else. So innovation, other things, that will come through the process while we are busy in producing something real, not on papers or not in words only. Mm-hmm. I think that is what we need to realize and make people realize that they need to be busy in producing something rather than talking about something.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Nasir's advice to all of us is that, we have to be much more than just PowerPoint entrepreneurs. We have to do some real work and produce some sort of real progress. Babar, Max, any parting thoughts from you for the audience?
I think this has been a great panel.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think hard work is misunderstood. It does not need to be hard work. And why it becomes hard work is because if you're not interested in the work that we are doing, it becomes hard work and it cannot be productive. So which means that we must also review our processes. Engagement does not mean that the productivity partner is engaged with what I am doing. Engagement means that the productivity partner has a say in deciding how this work would be done. And if the decision maker is involved in that, of course the motivation comes in, because it becomes productivity partners our work. It's not that somebody is working for me. I think also the management, especially the senior management, must be able to disagree with the shareholder. Somewhere they must find a way to disagree, to protect the kids. हमारे जब ने बच्चे पैदा किए इकट्ठे, to protect those kids, and also listen to their own kids, listen to their own children, also in their own families, by the way. And like I said, I am not listening to my wife and I'm not listening to my kids are not going to be motivated, nor is my wife going to be inspired. So as leaders, I'm not going to talk about management anymore. I want us to be leaders. And leaders that have this capacity to listen, to adapt, to adjust, and of course, promote those ideas which will take the organization and everybody in the organization towards their goals. And that is expanding the size of the cake. And of course, finding ways to distribute that cake in a judicious way, in a transparent and judicious way, so that everybody remains involved. So that's my view on this. But before we end, Faiza, you yourself are a partner in Engage Consulting, and you have plenty of experience.
Yes,
we must
right.
also be able to benefit from your wisdom in this area. But please take a few minutes yourself also and enlighten us around your experiences.
All right, thank you for that. I have close to 20 years of experience in HR with different organizations, and like Mike said, I've recently started consulting about a year ago. In my opinion, employee engagement is fairly simple, yet we get it wrong again and again. A lot of us get it wrong again and again. And it starts with something as basic as what Max said, which is about, I'm just going to word it a little differently, which is about really truly respecting employees. It's something literally, for me, it's as basic as that. I have seen organizations where I see senior managers being disrespectful, thinking that the position that they're in, it gives them the right to do so. Organizations where employees feel respected, where employees feel heard, the conviction that you were talking about, where employees get an opportunity to live the values that the organization claims that defines it or defines the business. I think there you will generally see employees that are engaged. Early on in my career, I worked for an organization. I was actually part of the team that set up an organization in Pakistan. And our CEO he came to us and he said, look guys, I want you to work with me, but let me tell you that I cannot pay you for the next 6 months. We worked for free for 3 months. We would go to the office at 8 in the morning, come back at 9 p.m., and then be excited about going to the office the next day. Why? Because he was honest with us. The leadership was very honest with us. They were forthcoming with us. And they gave us meaningful work. And they told us and they showed us how what we did made an impact not only to the organization but to the society at large, that what we were doing was creating jobs. So I think all of these things combined, they lead to employee engagement. But respect for employees is at the heart of employee engagement for me. And it's really as simple as that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Engagement is a topic that we can probably discuss for 3 days at a stretch and still not, have enough information about it, and we can continue for another 3 days, but because we're limited for time. So thank you very much for your time and for your thoughts. So on behalf of Nutshell, thank you for coming over and sharing your valuable information with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Please don't go away. Stay here. Asfar, if you are still here, please join us on the stage. Please don't completely abdicate this situation. We have gifts for all of you, and I request Sayyid Mazhar Hussain, Charo PTCL, to please come and help us give away the gifts from Sensation.
Were we on time?
Huh? Yeah, perfect. Center में आ जाओ, center में आ जाओ. हाँ, आप भी सेंटर में आते हैं, और ज़्यादा सेंटर में आते हैं, और ज़्यादा सेंटर में. लें भाई, गिफ्ट्स लें प्लीज. मज़े साहब आपने लेने हैं. Thank you very much. Great panel, and we enjoyed this discussion. So while we invite the next guest, and I think we must also appreciate Faiza one more time, because excellent time management. We got the stage at 4:19, and we gave 3:19, and we gave 4:19, and we gave it 3:19, and we gave it back 4:19. So that's 3:10, 4:10. So that's wonderful time management. Okay. हाँ, कुर्सियाँ